Intro Algebra Lesson 4-3A. We've been spending a lot of time dealing with graphs now. We've been looking at how we can take an equation and we can make different input-outputs to come up with coordinates that we can then put onto a graph, and it should produce a straight line. But now we're going to look a little bit more detailed as to what that graph actually produces for us and some more parts of the graphs themselves. Two very important parts of the graph. One is known as the x-intercept. Now, a quarterback drops back for a pass and he throws the ball to his receiver, and there's a line between the quarterback and the receiver. If a defender crosses the path of the ball, which is the line between myself, the quarterback, and the receiver, then they have a chance to intercept the pass. They can steal the pass. And that's where they cross. They aren't going to intercept it 10 feet away. They're going to intercept it right when they're on the line between the quarterback and the receiver. So an x-intercept is the point actually on the x-axis, not near the x-axis, but on the x-axis, where our graph crosses it. That's where it's going to cross. And if you think about it, when you cross the x-axis, if you're actually on the x-axis, you haven't gone up and you haven't gone down, which means your y value is always going to be 0. So when you're on the x-axis, when you're moving along the x-axis, you haven't gone up, you haven't gone down, your y value is 0. If we have an x-intercept, then it makes sense that we would have a y-intercept. Pretty much the same definition. The only difference is it's on the y-axis. And if you're on the y-axis, you haven't gone left and you haven't gone right, which means your x value is going to be 0. So that's where you would actually be crossing, is when your x value is 0. So looking at this on a graph, here I just drew a random red graph line, and right there I've circled where the y-intercept is. And right here I've circled where the x-intercept is. If you look at the actual coordinate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is the coordinate 0, 5. And as we mentioned, when you have a y-intercept, your x value will always be 0, because you're on the y-axis. Over here, this is at the coordinate 7, 0. And you'll notice that your y value is always 0. When you want this, you know your x is 0. When you want this, you know your y is 0. So those are the x and y intercepts. Alright? So here's the key. This is the real basic piece. This is what you have to remember. This is all of it in a nutshell. If you want to find the x-intercept, if that's what you want to find, then just put 0 in for a y. That's what y always equals when you're on the x-intercept, so you can substitute that value in. And if you want to know the y-intercept, then put 0 in for x. Whichever intercept you're looking for, put 0 in for the other letter. That's what it boils down to. So let's try it out and see how we do with this concept. Find the x-intercept of this. We know when we want to find the x-intercept, we put 0 in for y. That's the main concept. Alright, put 0 in for y. X minus 2 times 0. Alright? X minus 0. And this all equals 6. Well, what do you take? If you take 0 away from something, you're not really taking anything away, which means x equals 6. So our coordinate would be 6, 0. Because the x value is 6 and the y value is always a 0 when you want the x-intercept. So all we did is plug 0 in for y, and we did the math until we could solve for x. Alright, try another one. Same idea. We're still going to put 0 in for y. 2x plus 6 times 0 equals negative 24. Well, 6 times 0 is 0. So now you have 2x plus 0 equals negative 24, which means 2x plus 0 equals 24. And now you can solve. It takes one step to solve. Divide by 2. This 2x equals negative 24. Divide both sides by 2. And you get x is negative 12. But as a coordinate, our y value is 0, so we would say negative 12, 0. That would be the actual x-intercept. So if you want the x-intercept, plug 0 in for y. Alright? What if we want the y-intercept? Put 0 in for x. Okay, y equals negative 2 times 0 plus 5. which means y equals 0 plus 5. So, y equals 5. The y-intercept is 5. Now the actual coordinate is 0 for x, 5 for y. But again, you want y, put 0 in for x. If you want x, put 0 in for y. One more, a little bit more complicated looking, but it's still the same idea. You're going to plug 0 in for x. So 4 times 0. I would change that to plus negative. So now you have plus negative 5y equals negative 35. 4 times 0 wipes all of this out. And what you're left with is negative 5y equals negative 35. Divide by negative 5. Divide by negative 5. Negative divided by negative is a positive. So the actual coordinate is not 7, 0, but 0, 7. Because that's the y-intercept and we plug 0 in for x. So finding the x and y-intercepts is all based on this key right there. If you want to find the x-intercept, 0 goes in for y. If you want to find the y-intercept, 0 goes in for x. And then you can solve for the missing variable.